And so, welcome to another mindset video. I am super pumped. It is the early morning. I am in Tef, Albania, and I thought today I want to talk to you a little bit about this topic of in order to achieve a certain lifestyle, to live a life full of adventure, to maybe reach certain goals that you set for yourself. Sometimes you just need the way to change the way you see yourself. And in today's video, I want to share with you a few stories on our wake, on our hike. I would say let's already head out. And it's going to be on the one side a personal video sharing everything, okay? And just walk from the side over here. You know, for me, this topic, I really found myself many times in my life where I wanted to change it. And this is also going to be part of the podcast that we're probably also going to be shooting today on the go, which is like, hey, I had this got a world to see vision. I was like, at some point, I think I was like 17, and I was like, I got a world to see. And that was very different from the reality that I was living back then. Back then, I didn't travel really at all. I was actually struggling at school a little bit. It was going up already. And what I noticed is that due to a few experiences in my life, my personality was changing, and also the way that I was seeing myself was changing. You know, when I was growing up, I saw myself on the one side never as somebody who, let's say, liked to study, liked to go to school, liked to learn. Always was a little bit, too much energy. Couldn't even sit down, and obviously also most teachers didn't really like that. So the grades reflected that, and at some point I was like, screw that. And what it would happen to be, to share that as my first example, I think it's very common, with guys like me, it's almost like the cliche. You just start to believe well, I guess I'm not that smart. Well, I guess I'm just not the type of person that is good at school, good at getting grades. And you just almost kind of give up. Well, it's just not something for myself, And the thing is, with many of us, unless it just happens to be, maybe something happens, maybe we have a good teacher, maybe there is an experience where there is a subject that we just naturally have some affinity in, something that we're more interested in it, and it helps us to turn it around. So it's just passively something that happens to us in that case, that then helps us to change this identity that we kind of passively took on. Is recording is fine? Yeah, maybe we can do it a little bit slower. No worries. This is also right now a little bit the test run for the podcast that we're going to be doing later. Also, don't worry about the trash bins. I think once we're going to be in the mountains, it's going to be a little bit more, natural, organic. And to get back, I would say it's about building a certain awareness of how you see yourself. So the first example for me was I wasn't that good at school. But at some point, I said to myself, you know what? Actually, I made this experience. It kind of happened to me that some subjects I was just naturally good at. And I was like, wait a minute. It's not hard to get good grades. It's not hard to study a little bit. My grades are not good, D level, without studying at all. If I study a little bit, I can bring it up to a B. And I was like, hey, why don't I do that in every subject? Maybe I am not that lazy as I thought. Maybe I am just a little bit bored. Maybe I'm just a little bit rebellious. They tell me do that and I'll just fight. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that, And so at some point I thought to myself, hey, you know what? Let me go from the lazy guy to the guy that is studying a little bit, to one of these annoying people and gets good grades out of nowhere. It's these annoying people that are like, yeah, I barely studied. Oh my God, I'm so nervous. And then they're like B+. A-. I was like, I like that better. I want to be like that, but without the annoying part of telling everybody that you haven't studied. And so what I did is I sat down every day, an hour to two, every freaking day I was sitting down in this library, in this bookstore, also reading their books, stealing the knowledge. And within a year, I brought my levels up from a D to, a B+ level for the most part with almost everything, unless with the teachers where the relationship was already not that good. And that was kind of one of the also first examples where I was like, okay, that changed within a year like crazy. Okay. And then the other thing is with everything that we do, is how do we see ourselves? We say, hey, we're just not that type of guy. For example, with the early mornings, like I'm not going to force it on anyone. I'm not going to say like, oh, you have to wake up in the morning. That's just something you have to do. But it is just a fact that there is like no part of your DNA. Like if your parents and your grandparents didn't wake up early, they were just all night owls. If you have some evidence, you're very welcome to provide it. But overall, it's actually like the most natural thing to go to bed with sun is setting and to get up when the sun is rising. But not to argue that point. It's more like, again, part a little bit of your personal identity. It's like when people tell me like, oh, I would also absolutely love to wake up in the morning and live this epic lifestyle, which I'm not always living. Kind of like it's like half of the year. Took a little bit of a few weeks getting today back on. I think what an epic start to get back on it. And it's really about like starting to be a little bit like, hey, this is how I see myself. But you know what? Why don't I start seeing myself as the way that I want to be? And society has stigma around it because we have this kind of like advice of be yourself, be true to yourself. And it's always like, what does that mean? You know, I would say being true to yourself is a beautiful advice in a way of hold true to your values. It's like, think about what are your values? What do you value? You value family, you value community, you value, I don't know, freedom, loyalty. And then hold on to that. You know, this is like what it means for me to be myself, to develop and change and like grow as a person, but still like hold on to a certain set of values. Like for me, it's extremely important. And I might change that value because I'm not even like super happy about it. But for me, like to be myself is like to always stand up for myself and be true to myself in a way that if I know that I want to do or not want to do something, for me, it's extremely important to stay true to that. This is what it means for me to be myself. That if I feel that something is right for me, like for example, changing the way that I am holding true to that. I'm like, hey, I used to be like that. Let me give you another example right now. Like most people know me as the travel guy. I love to do travel videos and I still do, especially right now traveling through Albania. But I'm seeing how it is starting to limit me more and more. And this is why I also started the second channel around a year ago and it's growing. And right now I'm like, hey, like 2-3 years ago, I wanted to be exactly kind of what I am right now. Like not to brag like, oh, I made everything the way I wanted. But it's like, hey, when I was like 4 or 5 years ago, just working out, I haven't traveled anywhere. I was like, got a world to see. I got a world to see. And I was seeing myself shooting videos at the sickest places in the world, just going out there, filming videos, making something out of it. And at that point, I didn't have anything. But I started to see myself. And some people were even like, you're a little bit delusional. But the thing is, I knew I could back it up. And at the end, it was never about proving something to anybody because at this point, like I still have some good old core friends, but those are not friends that I need to prove anything to. All the people that I could have proved anything, like the friends that are not really your friends, they're just people that are around you that you feel like you need to prove something to, they're gone. You know, after school, that's just what happens kind of naturally. Or if you change your job or your environment, there'll be another topic for the podcast that we'll be shooting today. And basically, I changed my identity from, I don't know, whatever, like being a little bit of a, I just became, in a way, Danny Gatorolstein. This is what I became. And right now I am again. Yeah, you just walk there. I just walk here next to you. And now it's again about changing your identity a little bit. Starting to think, how do you want to be? And start to act accordingly and build skills around that, build things that, like, right now for me, it's like, walking through the mountains, talking, filming videos off the cuff. This is around a year or two ago where I was like, hey, this is the next thing that I want to do. The travel vlogs, they're kind of like locked in. I'm cool with that. That is working. Now, let me change into this new identity. And with that is also, like right now, I am building new structures. I am talking to people that might want to join the team. I've been for the last year working with people one-on-one. And in the beginning, it has been a little bit of a change of identity again, you know, being with people on the phone, chatting, getting to know people, but also making sales, you know, talking to them how I can solve their problems, how I can help them to build a YouTube channel, how I can help them to get the habits in check, to get the right mindset, to to maybe still be afraid, but to walk with the fear and do whatever it is you want to do in life. Just share the things that I've been doing and that worked for me. And you can ask like all the people around me is like, when you hang out with me, this is just kind of what naturally happens, that I'm like, I really have this deep driven desire to want to help people out in some way. And I talked in a different video about how I think there is a positive and a negative motivation behind that. Talk for another video, but it needed again for me to change this identity. And now I noticed again that it's scary. It's weird. It doesn't feel right in the beginning because you want to stay in the comfort zone, in the bubble of who you always used to be. But it's like the definition, we heard it all on the fancy quote on Instagram. Doing the same things and expecting a different outcome, thinking the same thing, seeing yourself the same way, and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. And this is exactly what it is about. At the end of the day, it will be a limiting self-picture how you see yourself. An opportunity might come up and you might be like, oh no, that's not me. That's not who I am. But why don't you become that if you want to be that? Who told you what you are? You were born as a kid and like, are we living in the 17th century where like if your father was a locksmith, you're going to be a locksmith? No. If you don't like where you live, do you have to keep living there? No. And we all have our limitations. But it's all up to us to, let's say, see the opportunity and not the obstacle. And see yourself as the person who finds the opportunity. And so with that, I hope you enjoyed today's little video. Maybe go back there, show them the background. Later today, we're also going to be shooting a podcast about how to live a life of adventure. I'm going to share a little bit the story of my past 5 years of travel, how on the one side financially it looked like, so very practical. And just definitely make sure to listen in on the podcast. If you would want to work with me one-on-one on the things that I talk about, building an online audience, health and relationships, reach out. There will be a form in the description below. Next to that, you can also check out my Patreon and my podcast. We're going to see each other very soon.